There's a silent shift that happens when you stop chasing a woman and start leading your own life. Not in anger, not in ego, but from a place of deep emotional clarity. You see, most men believe that to win a woman's attention, they need to be available, present, constant. But the truth is, when you are too accessible, too predictable, too emotionally naked before she's earned the right to see you fully, she won't value it. She may take it, she may enjoy it, but she won't worry about losing it. And let me tell you something, when a woman truly cares, truly respects, truly sees you as a high-value man, your silence shakes her, your absence lingers, your detachment makes her question everything she thought she had figured out about you. This video isn't about playing games. It's about knowing your worth so deeply that your energy becomes a privilege. It's about making her feel what your words used to beg for. Because when you pull back, not to punish, but to protect your peace, you flip the dynamic completely. This isn't about revenge, it's about remembrance. Because the most unforgettable man is the one who doesn't try to be remembered. He just is. There comes a time in every man's journey when he realizes performing doesn't get him love. It gets him attention. And attention, my dear brother, is not the same as being valued. You've been told that if you show her how kind you are, how attentive you can be, if you answer her calls quickly, text her back instantly, take her out, compliment her, do everything right, she'll finally see you, finally choose you. But has that worked? Let's be honest. Most of the time, the more you perform, the less she respects you. Not because kindness is weak, not because she's ungrateful, but she didn't earn that kind of emotional access to you yet, and you gave it anyway. You became available before you became grounded. You turned your heart into a performance stage instead of a sanctuary. High-value men don't perform for love. They protect their energy, not to punish women, but to preserve themselves. They don't give freely what is sacred. They choose. They observe. They pace themselves emotionally. They don't rush intimacy just because someone smiled at them. You must understand, your energy is your currency. And every time you overgive, you're bankrupting your self-respect. You're hoping that generosity will become a love contract. It won't. If she doesn't see your value without the performance, she was never meant to hold your peace when you're silent. Start protecting your energy like it's your birthright, because it is. Let her wonder why your attention has limits. Let her question why your availability isn't constant. Let her feel the shift in your energy, not because you're angry, but because you finally love yourself enough to stop bleeding for someone who never offered a bandage. Protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's spiritual hygiene. And when you do that, she won't just notice. She'll feel the absence of what used to be free and start wondering if she ever deserved it in the first place. There's something powerful about disappearing emotionally before you disappear physically. Not ghosting, not punishing, just pulling back your emotional investment, quietly, calmly, with full self-awareness. Because here's the truth. When a woman no longer feels your absence, you've become background noise in her life. Predictable, safe, too easy. Not because you lack value, but because you've made yourself too available for too long. And when something is always available, it's rarely appreciated. Most men don't realize this until it's too late. You keep texting, you keep checking in, you keep initiating conversations, you send the good morning texts, the good night texts. You're always present, always visible. And in that constant presence, you become invisible. You become something she expects, not something she feels. But here's where things change. The moment you stop trying to remind her that you're there is the moment she starts realizing how deeply she has access to something rare. The absence of your voice, your energy, your attention, it will create a space in her world. And that space, it won't go unnoticed. It will whisper questions to her heart. Why hasn't he reached out? Is he okay? Did I lose his interest? Was I too comfortable? You're not doing it to manipulate. You're doing it because you finally understand the difference between availability and value. If she only pays attention to you when you're silent, then your presence was never appreciated, it was consumed. A high-value man doesn't announce his absence. He doesn't slam the door or make a scene. He just stops forcing conversations, stops chasing attention, stops giving his energy to someone who didn't reciprocate it. He lets his absence do the talking. And here's the most profound part. When she feels that absence, it awakens her to a truth she may have been ignoring. That emotional access to you was not a right. It was a privilege. So brother, stop begging to be felt while you're present. Start creating a life, an energy, a presence that leaves a silence so deep when you're gone. it haunts the room, not to prove a point, but because you finally became one. There's a specific kind of power a man holds when he knows how to walk away without turning it into a performance. Not because he's cold, not because he's hurt, but because he's finally done explaining himself to people who were never trying to understand him in the first place. That's what emotional dignity looks like. See, most men don't realize that every time they over-explain, every time they beg to be understood, every time they chase for closure, they're handing away the very power they need to rebuild their self-respect. You don't owe her a paragraph explaining why you pulled back. You don't need to justify your silence. You don't need to chase clarity in a place that thrives on confusion. When a woman senses that you've detached and she can't get an emotional rise out of you anymore, that's when the reality sets in. That's when your dignity starts speaking louder than your words ever could, because she remembers how you used to show up, how you used to care, how you used to try. And now you've gone quiet, not bitter, not angry, just gone. And that absence of explanation, that stillness, that's what makes her start replaying the moments, retracing the missteps, questioning if she ever really knew your worth to begin with. Understand this. Women don't remember the man who begged. They remember the man who vanished with grace, the man who didn't need to be loud to be felt, the man who didn't chase her validation because he already carried his own. When you chase, you reinforce her belief that she holds power. When you detach, you reclaim it. So stop seeking validation through explanation. If she didn't get it while you were present, she won't suddenly understand it through your 3 a.m. text. Start moving in silence, with peace, with clarity. And let your absence remind her of the man she didn't take seriously until he stopped trying to be understood. You're not convincing anymore, you're for respecting. Let's be brutally honest. If she's never had to compete for your attention, she never had to value it. A lot of men make the mistake of centering their world around a woman. She becomes the sun, the goal, the everything. And in doing so, he forgets his orbit. Your life has to be so rich with purpose, peace, ambition, and movement that being with you is not the main event. It's a rare opportunity. In addition, not the foundation. You want her to worry about losing you? Then build a life she'd have to earn a place in, not just stroll in, because you're bored or lonely or desperate to feel chosen. Because when your days are filled with progress, your energy is rooted in purpose, your time is guarded, and your attention is scarce, you become valuable. Not in a fake, flashy, look at my success way, but in a quiet, grounded, I know where I'm going kind of way. That's what women respect. That's what shakes them. Not a man who drops everything when she calls, but a man who has something so solid, so intentional, so magnetic, that she realizes if I don't match that energy, I'll lose him. You see, most men think silence is enough, or detachment is enough. It's not. If your silence leads to nothing, she won't miss it. If your absence isn't backed by growth, she'll just assume you're lost. So make sure that when she turns around to check if you're still standing there, you're not. You're moving, you're building, you're becoming. And now she has a choice. She can rise to meet you or disappear in the dust trail of a man who finally chose his mission over his comfort. That's when the worry sets in. Not when you leave, but when you leave differently. And brother, if your life doesn't make her pause, reflect, and elevate, you're not living loud enough. You talked, you explained, you tried, you opened up your chest and put your heart on the table, hoping she'd understand, hoping she'd feel it, hoping something would shift, but it didn't, because sometimes your words don't fall on deaf ears. They fall on comfortable ears, ears that already assume they've got you, so they stop listening. And the more you talk, the more invisible you become. That's when silence becomes your only honest response. And let me tell you, nothing speaks louder than a man who goes silent with peace. This isn't the silence of manipulation. This isn't you shutting down because you're weak or bitter. This is the silence of a man who said everything he needed to say and finally realized that staying loud only made him look desperate. When you go quiet, she starts to hear. Not your voice, but the void. Suddenly, the things she brushed off replay in her mind. Your tone, your patience, your small requests, your emotional presence, all of it starts echoing in the silence you left behind. It haunts her, because silence is not just absence, it's a reflection. And when a man like you stops reaching out, stops asking, stops pouring, A woman who truly had feelings for you will feel it in places she didn't expect, but only if your silence is real, only if it comes from a place of healed detachment, not angry punishment. So give her the gift of space. Give her the room to feel what life feels like without your emotional presence in it. Let her wonder, let her reply, let her sit in what she used to take for granted. Because here's the truth. You were never too much, you were just too available to someone not ready to meet your depth. Now, let your silence speak your new standard, and this time, let her be the one who overthinks it. There's a kind of man women chase, not because he plays games, not because he's emotionally distant, but because he carries something most men don't: self-completion. He's not waiting to be chosen, he's already chosen himself. You want to make a woman worry about losing you? Then stop needing to be wanted. Because the moment you need her attention, her approval, her love to feel like a man, you give her a kind of power she didn't ask for and can't respect. Neediness isn't just about how often you text. It's in your silence that waits for a reply. It's in the way your mood shifts when she doesn't respond. It's in the little compromises you make with your values just to stay in her life. And what need? It leaks out in ways you don't even realize. But a man who doesn't need to be wanted, he's a storm of grounded confidence. He knows that even if she walks away, he doesn't lose himself. Even if she ignores him, he doesn't question his worth. Even if she chooses someone else, it doesn't shake the life he's building, because he's not defined by who wants him. He's defined by who he is when no one is watching. That kind of man, he's magnetic, not because he tries, but because he lives. He walks into rooms full. He listens more than he speaks. He creates more than he consumes. He chooses his peace over performance. And women feel that, not with their eyes, with their nervous system. Something about him tells them, this man doesn't need me. He's already whole. And if I'm not intentional with how I show up in his life, I'll lose the chance to stand beside someone unforgettable. That's not arrogance. That's alignment. So stop begging to be seen. Build yourself into someone impossible to unsee. Because the man who doesn't need to be wanted becomes the one they can't stop thinking about. Brother, if you're still chasing, still begging, still hoping she'll realize your worth, this is your wake-up call. You're not here to be someone's afterthought. You're not here to wait around for mixed signals, breadcrumbs, and temporary attention. You're here to become someone who doesn't need to prove his value, because his value walks in the room before he speaks. So walk in silence if you must. Build in solitude. Let go with grace. But above all, stop needing to be needed. Because when you become that kind of man, she will worry. Not because you punished her, but because she finally realized you were the rare one. If this message spoke to your soul, don't just watch, act. Like this video. Comment, I choose myself. Subscribe to this channel for real, unfiltered truth that builds better men. Because here, we don't chase women. We become the kind of men they fear losing.